Okay, hi, welcome back. Or welcome, because why would you have been here already? Today we're going to talk about the best 10 books that I read this year. So I read over 100 books, and choosing the top 10 was both easy and hard. So I felt like there was a standout 5, and the other 5 I kind of went through a few categories to try to decide on. But I read so many good books this year, and there are so many other books that I would happily put in the best category and wouldn't feel bad about. So, I can't really complain. That's a pretty good year of reading when I have more than 10 books that I would consider to be great and impactful on my life. Because that's what I would consider for these top 10, that they had some kind of impact on my life. For the better, hopefully. So, I tried to put them in order. It was pretty hard. I can't guarantee that this is the correct order, but this was what felt right for me today. And if you ask me tomorrow, it might be in a different order, but I had to get this up and out. So here's where we start. So in the number 10 spot is Homo Deus. So this is the second book written by Noah Yuval Harari. At least I think it is. I know it's the sequel to Sapiens, and Sapiens was such an amazing book. And it's not my type of book. Like, it's not the kind of book that I would consider myself to be, for it to be the kind of book that I'm typically drawn to. But Dylan showed it to me, and it seemed really interesting, and I picked it up, and it was really interesting. I think I listened to it at the wrong time. I think otherwise it would have been in the top 10, because I listened to it in Greece, whereas this book I listened to recently, and I listened to it a lot while I was running, and it just blew my mind in so many ways. Like, it asked questions, and I have a really hard time like internalizing books and having like internal dialogues. Well, I have a very hard time having internal dialogues because I don't think in words, but this book literally blew my mind and changed my life. So that's all I'm gonna say. So it had to be in the top 10. And also, I don't know if you'd consider this like a self-help book, but like maybe a history, but it's not even history, it's kind of talking about the future. So for that weird-ass category, this was the best book. So that's why it's top 10. Okay, best fantasy book of the year, and in number 9, we have The Hobbit. So I've talked about this before. It's my favorite book in the Lord of the Rings universe. I know that's probably controversial. A lot of people prefer Lord of the Rings to The Hobbit, and some people hate The Hobbit. But just as a standalone story, I really enjoyed it. And again, as I've said before, just the walking song and its like appearance throughout the book, and then the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I have it printed. It's right back there. I don't know if you can see it, but like, I love it, and it's such a full circle story. So this was my favorite fantasy book that I read this year, I think. And yeah, there's nothing else to say. It's a classic. It's a great book. I'd recommend it to everyone. Okay, moving on to number 8. Right? Number 8. Okay, in the first Stephen King book. There are 2 on this list. So don't get mad, Becca, but It. So this was a great book, but it took me a little bit to get into. And now that I've seen the movies and I've read more in the Stephen King multiverse, I like it even more. Even though I read it like 2 months ago, I like it more now. But it took me a while to get into. Once I was into it, yeah, it was really hard to put down, and it's a monster of a book. And I don't think there was a single word too many. So to everyone who says, oh, Stephen King doesn't know when to stop, I disagree. I strongly disagree. I think he could have kept going and going and going, and I would have just loved it and kept reading. But I have a Stephen King book that I do like more than this, that I read this year. So, my bad. But this was a great book. Better than the movies. Well, I've seen 1.5 movies now. But better than the movies. Loved it. What else is there to say? Everyone needs to read this. Okay, so the next book, so it's the 7th book. It was kind of hard to put in here. Yes, it was and it wasn't. It's such a weird book because I hated it. I hated it so much. It caused me so much physical pain and emotional pain because it's so amazing, and it just blew my mind. I was listening to this book, and it's the kind of book that made me want to get up and go on a run, and it was just so motivating. And the fact that it's true, there are some opinions in here that I think some people, Becca, wouldn't agree with, but like, it's such an interesting point of view. It's so life-changing, and it's really hard to sit, you know, here on my comfy couch and talk about books and have opinions on war when people have been there, and for me to have the audacity to disagree with them. Anyway, that's just my opinion. Sorry, I don't know if I even said what book it is. Lone Survivor. I watched this movie. It was awful. It was horrible because it's so terrifying, and I hate fighting, and I hate war, and I hate combat scenes, both like to watch and to read. But for some reason, this book was just, I still think about it. So for that reason, you know, it had to be in the top 10. Okay, here we are at the halfway mark, and my 5th favorite book is The Outsider by Stephen King. It was one of the first 2 books I read this year, and I didn't know anything about it going into it, so like, trigger warning, the first part is like super disturbing. It's Stephen King, what do you expect? But then, once I was into it, this book made me want to read the entire Mr. Mercedes trilogy and If It Bleeds, because I just really enjoyed characters and this side of like Stephen King's multiverse, which is so different than the It side, but is it? I don't know. It all ties in, and I love that so much. And I read this book like before I had read a lot of his other work, so I'm sure I missed a bunch of tie-ins. But it was such a good book. It was such a good book, and it scared the bejesus out of me. So that's why this had to be in the top 10. Okay, we're in the top 5. The top 5 greatest books I read this year. And so 5 and 4 kind of go together because it is the first and second books in the Beartown trilogy. The third one isn't out yet. But these books just, like everything else on this list, just blew my mind. It just blew my mind. Made me cry. Well, not everything on this list made me cry, but these both made me cry. I don't even know. People have described them as like a warm hug. I don't feel like that. That would be the world's worst hug if this is what a warm hug feels like to these people. But I love Beartown. I can't wait to go back. Like, I also work with a lot of hockey players, so I feel like that ties in as well to why I love these books so much, because they are all about Beartown, which is a hockey town. But I also feel like it just, I don't even know how to explain it. It made me understand things that I didn't understand otherwise. And there's a quote in here that goes something like, at the very best, if everything goes completely right, at the very most, all sport can give you is a few moments. But what is life made up of if it's not moments? And that just, I don't have any words. I'm not good at expressing myself. That's why I like reading books, because they can do it for me. Okay, we're on to the top 3, and all top 3 books are memoirs or autobiographies by female authors, which is awesome. So, in 3rd place, we have Wild by Cheryl Strayed. I think this was the first book I read this year. I bawled, ugly sobbed, cried, like couldn't keep it inside of me, sobbed. And I can't wait to reread this book. I think I might reread it January 1st because I would love for this to be how I start my year every year. This is such an incredible book. The movie doesn't do it any justice. And yeah, there's nothing, like, I don't know how to keep rephrasing the fact that this book was amazing and it changed my life, and I think about it all the time. Because that's the case for most of these books. But this one, just incredible. I enjoyed her writing. I loved her story. Not that it's up to me to love somebody's story, but like, I thought she expressed her like thoughts and feelings incredibly well. So, definitely a top 3 book for me. Okay, the second best book I read this year is The Choice by Dr. Edith Eger. So, this book, I went into it not having the slightest clue what it was about. But I will say I love reading World War II books. I find them very interesting. And the fact that this talks about her experience surviving concentration camps, but it also like jumps forward into her life working as a psychologist. It was just incredible to read. What an amazing author, what an amazing, incredible, strong woman. I loved reading about her life. I would love to go back and read even more about her life. She's just amazing, a role model. I feel like this book can make everyone's lives better. So, highly recommend this one. Okay, time for the best book of the year. So again, I said at the beginning of this video that like depends on the day of how these books would rank, but I did finish this book yesterday, and like I have so many feelings about this book. The book is Know My Name by Chanel Miller. How can someone express so many feelings in such a way that feels like they came from inside of myself? How can someone who's so young have so many analogies and experiences and say things in a way that's the greatest I've ever heard them say? I don't know if that make it. I don't know how to say this, but it's just such an incredible book. My mind has been blown. I don't know what to say. Like, it's life-changing, and that's the beauty of books, is like they can actually change your life. And this one was definitely one that did it for me. I want to go through this book again. I want to annotate. I want to read. I want to underline. I want to write. I want to mark. I want to tattoo these words on my body because I felt them so deeply inside of my soul. So, anyway, yeah, it's just a book, but oh my god, if you think anything is just a book, you need to read this. Okay, so these are my top 10 favorite books of 2021. I'm so happy. I'm so happy I can own all of them, and I'm never going to give them up. I love them so much. Okay, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.